Right, welcome everyone. I call this meeting of the Bus Transit Coordinating Committee to order. There's a short video. Again, if you could play that, please.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
All right, thank you. I guess now we move on to roll call. Ariane?
Member Barnes?
Present.
Member Thompson?
Yeah.
Member Horta for Vice Chair Churchill?
Here.
Acting Chair Androcek for Chair Hirsch?
Here.
Representative Alternate Nopty? See you there. She's here. Representative Murphy is absent. And I just want to note that we also have our bus transit operators. We have Representative Peoples and Representative Altworth with us as well. And we also have alternate train as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So next item is public comment. Have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any written public comment.
All right, anyone out there waiting to speak online?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, and this is for items that are not on the agenda, but it doesn't look like anyone's there. All right, we will move on to number 3, the consent calendar, which includes summary of actions from the January 9th, 2023 meeting. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? All right, seeing some shaking heads. Tarianne, have we received any public comments, written or otherwise?
No written public comment.
Okay. Anyone would like to speak on this? Please raise your virtual hand and we will call on you.
No public comment.
All right. So do we have a motion in a second?
Approved.
We got a motion?
A motion to approve, yes.
Yeah.
I'll make a second.
All right. Motion, Mr. Barnes, and second, Mr. Thompson. And I guess we have to do a roll call vote.
Yes. Member Barnes?
Yes.
Member Horta?
Yes.
Member Thompson?
Yes.
Acting Chair Androwchuk.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the regular agenda, and I would like to move up item 4C per request of CCTA staff who has a conflict. If that is okay with everyone. All right, we'll go to 4C, which is Contra Costa Countywide Transportation Plan Task Force Transit Agency Representatives, and this is I don't know who's. Oh, Mr. Huang, I'll let you explain this.
All right, thank you, Chair Androwchuk, and good afternoon, Chair and committee members. John Huang, Director of Planning for the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. Thank you for allowing us to move up on the agenda this afternoon. So briefly, CCTA is undertaking development of the countywide transportation plan update. The last time we updated this plan was back in 2017. And over the past year and a half, we've been working with the RTPCs, the Regional Transportation Planning Committees, and the cities, including transit agencies, in developing the sub-regional action plans. There was 5 altogether, and we just approved the respective RTPC boards approved those plans, and that got presented to the CCTA board for acceptance. So that remains a draft. So it's going to stay a draft until we start this countywide transportation plan development. So for today, staff is asking that this committee assign 2 members to the what we call the CTP task force to help guide the development of the CTP. And we would like to have a representative from the rail and 1 representative from the bus providers. This process of the CTP development will take approximately 2 years. So the commitment involved with this task force is we anticipate to have regular monthly meetings and then additional meetings as necessary. Your involvement will be essential, will be critical to the success of this plan. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
All right, any questions from the committee, comments, changes? Jumana? Unable to get off mute.
Oh, let me look at her settings here. Okay, try now.
Works now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, for the rail representative, did you have an agency in mind?
No, I did not. We don't have an agency in mind.
Okay.
John, can you just explain to me, and I'm, because I'm new to this, what is this task force? They're going to be developing the process, meaning that the production of the document is going to go to a third party to produce, but this task force is going to help guide that process?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Rashidi. So we have multiple groups that's going to be providing input towards the development of CTP. So this task force will be one of them. We do have regional inputs from a planning managers, like the city managers. Will have a group from the city managers also to provide input. We also were working with the local RTPCs and the engineering advisory committee. So this transit group will be representing transit in general, and all the materials that we develop at appropriate times will present it to the group and vet it through you and ask for your comments and feedback. Again, because this is transit focused, so certainly we will make sure that any and all transit related items will be presented to this group, to this TCC, this task force, and advise us on how to proceed, provide inputs and feedback, and we will take that into consideration along with the other groups too, and then we will coalesce and process the document going forward, and we will be relying on this group as far as the other groups to just provide us some guidance going through the process.
Well, it looks like we only have one rail agency on call, so maybe that has answered its own question. And between Rob, myself, and Ruby's team, does it have to be one of us three, or could it be staff? from one of our team?
That's a great question. I failed to mention in my presentation, but it can be you or one of your designated.
Okay. Do you need a response right now? Is that what you're asking for?
I will pose a question, and you don't necessarily have to respond right now, but certainly if you can work with the chair and within your group and just let us know at a future time. We are planning to have that first meeting starting June, so next month. So if we can get some responses within the next few weeks, that'd be great.
And Ruby.
Thanks, Chair Undercheck. For the past DTP updates, who has participated in the task force? I don't recall from the bus operators. I'm assuming Bart has always had a staff person there, but do we know who's participated on the bus operator side?
I don't have that list in front of me, Ruby, but I can look it up and see the participation from previous years.
All right, so
For nominations today,
yeah, I was going to say,
it's like
I guess
we're
we
gonna
should.
take a formal action, yeah. Do we want to at least nominate the two agencies, Bart and one of the transit operators?
Looks like Amy has a question.
Go ahead.
I do too. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your future efforts to get this countywide transportation plan put together, and having been involved in it in the past, your voice is going to be incredibly important. So my guess is that of the the three operators that would be engaged in it, and obviously AC is always involved, but the three Contra Costa solely based agencies are going to be important. I would have a suggestion that perhaps we might want to bring this back to the operator to decide. Fortunately, they all have such a close working relationship that whoever actually sits at the table will be there with the support and engagement of all the transit operators. And in this future measure, that was a Freudian slip. In this future countywide plan, the engagement of transit is going to be essential, because it is going to be, transit is such a vital part of the future of transportation. So that would be one suggestion. Certainly, if the committee, and I'm here as a guest, but if the committee wanted to do something today, you could. But on the other hand, the operators could kind of chat maybe and decide within their group who would represent the transit operators. If that gives you enough time to fill in with the CCTA schedule, because I think agreeing with Terry Ann and John, we don't want to hold this up. So you want to be able to move forward, but happy to recommend that maybe we defer to the operators to make that call.
I'm okay with that. My biggest concern with a potential 24-month process, it's a lot of involvement. And so I think that we need to be respectful of each agency's workloads and who that person may be. So I'm not in a position to make that commitment now, but I would want to talk it through with my partners in the county if possible. And we can get back probably in a day or so to the chair, who can get to staff, if that's okay. That would be my recommendation, piggybacking off of Amy's.
So if we need a rail and a bus recommendation, and certainly AC is happy to, let one of the fully Contra Costa operators take the lead on this, and I'm sure we'll be involved regardless. But it sounds like we'd be looking at BART, and so maybe we can sort of nominate BART, and Jemana, you can provide us with a person.
Yeah, I can find out who would be assigned to that. I've already initiated that request.
And then on the bus side, we basically one of the three Contra Costa operators, and then we'll figure out which one later. Is that a sufficient recommendation for the study anyway?
Is that for John? I think that's.
Yeah. What was the question, Chair?
If we nominate BART and then one of the three solely Contra Costa bus operators, and then get back to you within the next few days or something of actual persons.
Yeah, that'll work fine. Yeah, just you can run it through Ying Smith, who's your liaisons, and she can forward it to me. You can just email it to me directly. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm happy to coordinate that, or definitely don't email Mike because he's not in the country at the moment. And then I guess, Tara, do we have any written public comment?
No written public comment.
If anyone from the public would like to speak on this, please raise your hand and someone will call on you.
No public comment.
Okay, so I guess, do we have a motion? And I think just to summarize, that motion would be BART as the rail operator with the person to be identified, and then one of the three Contra Costa bus agencies with a person to be identified.
I'll move that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, and then roll call, please.
Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Acting Chair Andrzejczyk.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you to staff. Now we will roll back to agenda item A, which is approval of the fiscal year 23-24 Measure J allocation, countywide bus services, program 14.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Ying Smith, Director of Mobility Programs. I'm here to present this item and the next one. So this is the annual allocation item for Measure J Program 14, which is countywide bus services. The allocation, the calculations are shown in your staff report. I'm going to just walk you through very briefly. I think many of you are familiar with this item. We started with our Measure J, the entire Measure J program estimate of $117 million. And program 14 is 5% of the total. And this is all included in the expenditure plan. We giving the sales tax receipt as well as the CPI increase, we are required to set aside 3% for reserve. And the next item is the authority's own program management costs, which we estimate would be $38,000, which is the same amount as what we use in the current fiscal year. So that left us with $5.6 million and some change for allocation. The distribution of the fund to each operator is also included in the expenditure plan. And that's how I can show my screen so then you can follow this. This is the same as what you have in your staff report. So this is how we allocate this year's new revenue. In addition to that, there's a reconciliation amount in the total of $1.12 million. This is from 21-22. And then when we add the amount to the total, we have a total of 6.757 for allocation. This table, which is in the draft resolution, shows the allocation amounts for each operator. So that concludes my presentation, and the staff recommendation is for your approval to recommend to the CCTA Authority Board for the resolution and the allocation amounts.
Right.
I'm
Thank
happy to answer
you.
your questions.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ying. Any questions for Ying? Ruby?
Yes, thank you, Ying, for that. You mentioned that the TEP specifies the reserve requirement. I believe it's for this and program 16 as well. So this question applies to both items. The resolution that the 2 CTA board adopted in December, 22-33P, talks about the reserve or increasing the reserve based on the difference between the estimated Measure J revenues and actual revenues that are adjusted mid-year. Would the reserves for these two programs also have to follow that policy? And if so, would the operators be then eligible to access those funds in future years based on the amounts that were set aside?
Yeah, thanks for Ruby. Thanks for mentioning the new reserve policy that would our board pass in December. I have Peter Engel, who you're very familiar with. I'm going to start, and then Peter can help me explain better. The new policy, it doesn't apply to this particular allocation for now. So that's why we're going back. We're practicing the past practice, but starting in the mid-year, there will be if there's the operators will only receive allocation if the revenue in projection is higher when we do the mid-year adjustment. So Peter, do you have more to add to fully answer Ruby's question?
Yeah, I think you're partly right, Ying. The way I understand it is that the two reserve policies are independent of each other. One was a policy that's actually written into Measure J, and it applies to programs 14, 15, and 16, Ruby, as you mentioned. And it actually says in the expenditure plan how to calculate it. And it's what we do on a yearly basis is we take the annual CPI and we compare that to the annual sales tax revenues for that same year. And we look at the growth over the previous year. And if the sales tax grows above the CPI, then that percentage up to 3% goes into a reserve for that program. So that's actually written into the measure. And we've been doing that, and we will continue to do that based on the expenditure plan. The reserve policy that the board adopted in December, the way I read it, and we probably have to have our CFO Brian confirm this, is that it's completely independent from the Measure J expenditure plan policy. And how it will work is, and it applies to and this new policy applies across the board to Measure J programs that are allocated on an annual basis, not just the 3 that are mentioned in, specifically called out in the expenditure plan. So in other words, school bus, everything. So ferries, everything. So what happens with the bus programs is we do a projection at the beginning of the year, and that's what goes into our initial budget for that fiscal year. And then our agency does a mid-year budget adjustment, which may or may not include a revenue adjustment. So we don't do anything with the programs until the end of the fiscal year when we know the actual amounts. So that's why there's this kind of 2-year lag in reconciling that money that comes forward. So what's going to happen? So I shouldn't say what's going to happen coming up, because what the new policy, how that would be and how that would operate is it didn't apply to fiscal year 21-22 because the policy wasn't adopted yet. It will apply to fiscal year 22-23. In fiscal year 22-23, there was no Measure J revenue adjustment during the mid-year budget process. So if the revenues increase above if there is an increase of revenues above the initial projection, then those are the funds that would go into the reserve. And they would go into the reserve of each of the programs, because the expenditure plan requires that those funds be allocated to the operators in accordance with the expenditure plan. So CCTA can't take those funds and use them. Well, if they do use them for cash flow issues, they have to be paid back and paid to the operators at some point in the future by the end of the fiscal year. I can't remember for sure. I wasn't part of the policy development on that. I think there's a provision that under certain circumstances, those reserves will be reviewed and the board can take action to allocate some of those in future years should it be necessary. So those will be there. The whole reason for the policy was kind of the discussion of a recession coming up and potential cash flow issues and capital projects and debt service and all that stuff, and our CFO and projects department looking at needing to kind of have a little bit of a cash flow cushion. So that's how that'll be handled. I know it's fairly complex, but I hope ask any questions if you have them. But back to the Measure J expenditure plan reserve policy, it does not give direction on how those reserves, what would trigger the use of those reserves. Clearly, they'd be used within the programs that they're being collected, but there's no trigger. So that's something that you guys might want to discuss in a future agenda item. There's not a lot of money in there. Like, for instance, the bus program, there's a little over $700,000. In the express bus program, I think there's about $650,000. So, you start spreading that money out amongst the 4 bus operators, it, doesn't amount to much, but it's being collected nonetheless and is kind of sitting there, and it's managed by our finance department.
So just to make sure I follow that correctly. So in the future, for example, if we look at program 14 currently, there's $1.1 million that were adjusted from FY 21-22.
Correct.
So that $1.1 million in the future would be, instead of being, returned to us, would be going to this reserve fund under program 14 that could in the future be used for program 14 services.
Correct. And that is if there is a $1 million. That $1 million is all based on.
No, yeah. I mean, on the column, the total of
Right.
that column.
Right. So in the there's a little nuance there, and that is in the future, we know it's not going to happen in 22-23 because there was no mid-year revenue adjustment. But in future years, if there is a mid-year revenue adjustment, then the difference between the initial projection and the mid-year revenue adjustment would be reconciled back to the operators. Only the amount between the mid-year revenue and the actual end of the year revenue is put into the reserve. So just to complicate things further. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Peter. I can't say I followed that exactly, but I kind of got the gist of it. Any questions from anyone else?
I didn't write the policies. I'm just here to try and
Yeah,
explain them.
And
Definitely
I'm
understand.
glad,
Don't
thank you.
shoot the
Peter.
messenger.
I got a question. Is that something that staff can put in writing then so we can and distribute it to the members so we can understand it better?
We can work on that. Yes, it is like some of you mentioned, it's very complicated. I'm learning since I'm new here, and we will put that in the bullet point format so we can. Yeah, it's for transparency. It's really important for everyone to know that this is our reserve policy, and that's how, in practice, how we apply the policy.
I think the important thing to take away from this is now there's kind of two policies with regard to reserves instead of just the initial what the expenditure plan said. So unless Brian, and this is a question for our CFO, unless he interprets that this supersedes, well, I don't think he can interpret that it supersedes the Measure J policy because that was voted on by the residents. But he could, I guess, come up with something, but I think the safest thing is just understand them as two separate reserve policies. In either case, the money that's put into the reserve will at some point be distributed back out to the operators under each of those programs.
Okay, any other questions? Terry-Ann, any public comment, any written public comment?
No written public comment.
Okay, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand and someone will call on you.
No public comment.
No comment. Okay, do we have a motion? And this is an approval item.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, Orca with a motion to approve and Barnes with a second.
Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Acting Chair Androwchek.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. So now we will move on to item B, which is the fiscal year 23-24 Measure J allocation countywide express bus program 16.
Thank you, Chair. So this is for program 16, countywide express bus services. So it's the same logic. This program accounts for 4.3% of the total revenue, and the same reserve 3% was applied. So after we take out the reserve as well as the authority program management cost, we have $4.8 million and some for allocation. The program management cost is the same as the current year 22-23. So we distribute by the 4 subregions. Let me also do a share screen quickly. But we need to further distribute to the operators because County Connection provides services in 2 subregions, while the West subregion is we have 2 operators. So it's the same formula as what we use as explained in the expenditure plan. The reconciliation amount is $972,000. So with the current year as well as the reconciliation amount, we have $5.8 million for allocation. So this is as in the draft resolution. This is how it worked out, and then the amount to each operator. So staff recommendation is for your recommendation for approval to the authority board for program 16. Again, happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ying. Any questions for her? Okay, Terry Ann, any written public comment?
No written public comment.
Okay, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand and we'll call on you.
No public comment.
Okay, so again, this is an approval item, so if I could get a motion.
I can issue a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Barnes to approve and a second by Thompson.
Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Acting Chair Andrechek.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. We did item C already. And so then there is item D, Contra Costa Integrated Transit Plan Draft Engagement Plan.
All right, thank you. Today I have our consulting team that will help present this item. Just quickly, our authority board approved the contract award for the integrated transit plan to Sam Schwartz. We have kicked off the study early in April, and for the first time we come to you, we have an overview of the integrated transit plan as well as a draft engagement plan for your review. So I'm here first want to introduce our team members on the consultant side, from Kate Sargent from Sam Schwartz and Rebecca from Convey. So do you ladies want me to do the share screen of the presentation?
If you'd like, or I'm happy to do it, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, please go ahead. And they will do the presentation for you and get input from you on the draft engagement plan.
Okay, great. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just give a bit of an overview of the project and then pass it off to Rebecca to talk about the engagement plan specifically. And I know that this group has gotten an overview of the scope of the project previously, or that's my understanding. So I won't go into what might be repetitive detail, but I'm also happy to answer any questions or talk about the scope further if you'd like. So I wanted to just introduce the team who's going to be conducting this project. So I'll be the project manager for the consultant team. Kevin Desmond from Sam Schwartz is the principal in charge of the project. And he was previously the GM of King County Metro and TransLink in Vancouver, so brings that transit agency experience. And we have the project divided into work streams addressing emerging mobility and technology, institutional and policy change, equity, public and stakeholder engagement, existing service assessment and market analysis, transit planning, behavioral science, and capital improvement. And the consultant team consists of Sam Schwartz as the prime consultant, and our partners are T.Y. Lin, Kimley Horn, Nelson Nygaard, and Convey. So the project vision, just to recap from the RFP language, is that CCTA's transit first vision includes the prioritization of integrated transit while maintaining community-specific service. And CCTA's transit first approach requires examining new ways to improve local and regional transit services with consideration to varying geographic needs and rider behavior. This includes improving the passenger's experience, whereby regardless of where in Contra Costa and neighboring counties a person needs to go, transit will be the preferred travel mode, and demonstrating the vital importance of transit to improving the quality of life for everyone. The transit first vision includes an integrated transit plan that provides technical and planning guidance with a clear vision for delivering a robust transit network that connects all major activity centers and regional hubs in Contra Costa. So to give an overview of the tasks and the project schedule, we are beginning with the existing service assessment and travel market analysis. So this is determining where people are coming and going to and from within the county, mode share, and inventorying existing surveys and other data about traveler behavior. We will then, as we synthesize that data, begin to put together potential recommendations, which we'll also be sharing with stakeholders throughout the course of the project. We'll be addressing institutional and policy changes needed, task 3, to implement our recommendations, and developing capital improvements to support service. So this will be scoping potential projects that support the overall recommendations of the project. And so these are the technical tasks. There will be stakeholder engagement and public engagement throughout the project. And I will turn it over to Rebecca to talk about that in more detail. The project is just beginning now and is expected to go through October to November of 2024. And with that, before we move on to engagement, would love to hear if there are any questions or thoughts or comments. I'm not sure if I can see everyone at the same time here.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Nopti.
Yeah, how will this project be coordinated with the countywide transportation plan that from the last item, the Transit 2050 Plus project, and the MTC is doing, and then the Innovate 680 project that's been ongoing for a while? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great question. So the countywide transportation plan, we've been talking about how to coordinate with that project and would like to meet with the project team at key moments. The first one likely being during the formation of goals and objectives, which lines up pretty well with the schedule for our project, for us to meet and get alignment with that project team at that point this summer. And then we'll also have other scheduled points throughout that project when we coordinate with them as we develop recommendations to make sure everything's coordinated, because obviously we do want to make sure that those plans align. As for the Transit 2050 Plus project, so MTC is a member of our policy. Maybe you can help me on the acronym that we.
It's the Project Oversight
Committee. Thank you. So we'll be coordinating with them through that channel. And then the Innovate 680 project, maybe Rebecca or Ying, you can speak to specifics about that project and how we might coordinate with that project.
Yeah, let me start. I'm sure Rebecca has some additional points to add to it. The Innovate 680 is corridor specific effort, and it has a lot of focus on capital development. And in the integrated transit plan, we also have the capital improvement program to look at what kind of capital improvements will be needed to support greater transit services. So we will collaborate with the other team on any transit related capital improvements to make sure the two efforts complement each other and support each other. So Rebecca, do you have anything else to add on the Innovate 680 effort?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Rebecca Krawick. So I'm leading the public and stakeholder engagement on the ITP project, but I also lead it for the Innovate 680 project. And the great thing about the Sam Schwartz team is that not only am I on it, but also Adam Dankberg, who is with Kinley Horn, is on it. And one of the key projects that this plan will take into consideration is the Shared Mobility Hubs project, which is a cornerstone project of Innovate 680. So there is likely points of coordination throughout, but we also have just the consistency of the two teams that will be helpful in keeping the plan and the program coordinated. And I think we have another question. Sorry, did that answer your question fully? Okay.
Great. Rashidi?
Yeah, thank you for your time and the presentation you provided thus far. To Jemana's point, will we also take in consideration, or will this take in consideration the efforts being done through RM, the Regional Network Management Program through MTC? Because that's going to be a major undertaking for the 9 counties, which this program, or which could impact the results of this program, or this program could impact the results of that program. So I just wanted to see if that was being considered as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to the Transit 2050 plus the other elements of the Regional Network Manager project will definitely be coordinated through MTC as part of the Project Oversight Committee as well. Is there a specific aspect?
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is just because depending on how soon they hire that person and what the direction of the RM or the Regional Network Management team could go, that could impact this timeline, I guess is my point.
Let me take a crack at this. So the integrated transit plan is part of the reasons why we're doing it. Is one is was mentioned in the last round, the countywide transportation plan, and the other one is a response to MTC's Blue Ribbon Task Force. So we collectively decided this is Contra Costa's answer. At least that's one of our goals in the integrated transit plan, in how we respond to the regional effort in better integrated transit services. So there's quite a bit of back and forth. We'll see that like in the past effort that MTC has carried out, as well as the future effort. We want to be able to be more proactive to the regional desire and have our own version based on the input, especially from all of you on this committee, have a more proactive response to the regional efforts. So Rashidi, hope that answers your question.
It's okay. I just think that a lot of these efforts are being done and they're not necessarily coordinated as well as possible, just because there's so much uncertainty about program direction, when they're going to start, things like that. So it's not necessarily this particular program, it's more the regional programs and how they're playing, how they could impact what we're supposed to do here in Contra Costa County.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you still have a concern there. So, potentially we can just keep talking about that as the project progresses and that project starts up. My understanding is they haven't selected a consultant for the network, the Transit 2050 plus regional network project yet.
Shall we continue? Let Rebecca finish her presentation, because there's some really good points in the second half of the presentation.
Great, thank you everyone, and thanks again for hosting us today. So as I mentioned, my name is Rebecca and I'm a sub-consultant to Sam Schwartz, and will be leading the public and stakeholder engagement for the integrated transit plan. Next slide. So some of what these slides will show are just snapshots from the full engagement plan, which I can also pull up if folks are interested. But I do think that the slides really give a good summary of what's in the plan. So first of all, we have broken our audiences into kind of 3 main groups. Technical stakeholders, which includes our project oversight committee, of which MTC is a member, as well as transit operators from all the operators within the county. And then we have a group of interested stakeholders, and that would definitely include those folks who might have some technical expertise, or they might be elected officials or community-based organizations that will have some additional touch points with our group. And then we have, of course, the general public, whom we will want to engage with in order to inform and let folks know what's happening, but also at times get feedback from them. So you can see on the right side, our key touch points will be everything from board presentations to the CCTA board, all the way down to mini polls and surveys that we might do with the public and all stakeholders. So I won't read through all the touch points, but you can see that we're really going to be working hard to keep engagement going, both at the stakeholder level, key stakeholder level, and the public throughout the technical work that you saw on Kate's earlier schedule slide. Okay, next slide. So some of our project collateral, this chart basically shows you kind of what some of our activities and collateral will be. This is not exhaustive, but these are sort of key pieces that we're working on right now, and which audience segments that those pieces or activities will be geared towards. And like with most engagement plans, we are very prepared to pivot as needed. So for example, if more workshops are needed, or focus groups need to change their focus and be more technical, for example, we're going to be doing that. Most engagement plans do tend to become living documents to some extent, and we're looking forward to really accommodating the project at every phase. Next slide. So here is our engagement schedule. So if you can sort of envision Kate's earlier slide on top of, right above this slide, you'll see that task 5 is going to be, which is the public and stakeholder engagement, is going to be working throughout all of tasks 1 through 4 to support those efforts. So we do plan to have several board meetings. Those are the light blue dots across the top. You can see the technical stakeholder meetings. Those are our project oversight committee meetings, which we at this point intend to have monthly, except when the agency is dark in August. Right now, we're working on some project oversight committee one-on-one interviews. We have some framing workshops and other workshops happening. And then with the interested stakeholders, that's where we're hoping to do some really focused group meetings where we can get some good feedback, but also share information about how the project is progressing. And then finally, with the public, we will be doing some community pop-ups through CCTA. So they have a summer series planned for this coming summer, and we will make sure that the integrated transit plan is a focus at some of those pop-ups, and we'll hopefully gather some feedback from the public at that time, but then also follow up those community events with some online survey opportunities for folks to give us feedback on this plan progress. Next slide. Oh, maybe I could just pause there. I just want to make sure there's no questions. Sorry about that. Because I've kind of said a lot of things in a few slides.
I have a question.
Okay.
The technical stakeholders. Am I reading it correctly? Your one-on-one meetings are going to be with PLC members. Is that what the plan is?
At the moment, right now, that is the plan. We do have room for in our scope, just logistically speaking, for some extra interview time. So there is a possibility for more. We're looking forward to kind of digging into the first couple to kind of see where they go. And Kate, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that sounds right. I think, yeah, we're starting with the project oversight committee meetings, and then we'll touch base with the project team to figure out how to go from there. But those should be scheduled to start in a couple of weeks.
Ms. Horta?
To some of the earlier questions regarding the overlap or coordination with some of these other regional plans. It might be good to incorporate some of the milestones in those plans and those efforts within this engagement schedule so that we at least know where are some of the key touch points or milestones that we should be aware of as some of the other plans are being advanced.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion.
All right, Ms. Napti?
Yeah, who is on the POC other than MTC?
The 4 inter-county transit agencies. So there's a representative from each. I'm sorry, I don't have the names in front of me, but the names of the folks, but each of the 4 transit agencies. Transit operators. Any other questions about the schedule or? Okay. I think we can go to the next slide. So our first phase of engagement, we're well underway with many of these items. We've already drafted the engagement plan. We've met with the project oversight committee once already, and we have another meeting scheduled for later this week. We're in the
Oh, you got muted.
Rebecca,
Yep. Okay. Am I still muted?
no, we
No,
can
you-
hear you now.
Okay. Not sorry. I don't know if that was me. I apologize. So we're in the process of scheduling the project oversight committee interviews and also creating some of those core pieces like the fact sheet and the website so that we can be sharing information regularly with all of our stakeholders and the public. And it looks like we might have another question in the panel.
Ruby, your hand, is it up from before or is the question?
Up from before, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And I believe, is there another slide, Kate? I believe that's the last slide. Okay. So that concludes the presentation. Are there any other questions or questions about the engagement plan itself? Okay.
Thank you, Kate and Rebecca. Ariane, do we have any? Oh,
I have one more last question. I apologize.
no, go ahead.
To the 2 CTA staff, the coordinated entity, the formation of that, and all that person will be doing, is that also going to be incorporated into this study?
That's a really good question. Yes, yes, I understand your question. We are carrying out a lot of effort on the accessible transportation front. I am trying to keep these 2 efforts separate because each one is complicated itself. And I really would prefer not to see the quadruple effect of the complexity. But I understand that definitely we are working with the same group of people, the transit agencies, and with CCTA and some regional efforts. So, but for the most part, we would like to keep these 2 efforts as separate as possible to make both sides more manageable. So hope that answer your question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking long term, if we're talking about integrated transportation plan, it has to include accessible services, ADA paratransit services. And so I'm just curious to know if somehow, some way we'll be able to incorporate whatever the CE starts to put together into this plan down the road in 2024.
Yeah, I think definitely especially when we talk about budget. Kate, can you take down the share screen, please? That helps so we see each other's faces. Thank you. I think definitely when we talk about your overall services and the paratransit piece, as well as your budget and service level, right? Those things are related. But just to make it manageable, it is really it can be really confusing to, at least to myself and to many other people, the people who want to engage with, to blend this too closely. And I know we all in the back of our mind, we understand how those two efforts are related, but it just the level of complexity that that kind of gets in the way. So I would really want to keep them separate, especially for our consultants, right? They are signed up for this job, and while we have other consultants work on the accessible transportation, the coordinating entity. But when we talk, we should definitely kind of be able to put everything on the table, but able to separate them and have kind of use this divide and conquer approach. But appreciate your point, Rashidi.
Okay, any other questions? So now I can ask if there's any written public comment.
There is no written public comment.
Okay, and if we have anyone from the public who would like to speak, please raise your hand and someone will call on you.
No public comment.
Okay. And so that was just a informational item. I don't think we need to vote on that. And then moving on to item E, which is approval of the Bus Transit Coordinating Committee draft meeting schedule for 2024.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So item is for you to review the meeting schedule for next year, 2024. The reason is this year, and also went back to the record last year, we have to cancel the April meeting and ask for a special meeting, and which is quite a bit effort, and try to also for many of you is a challenge to find the space on your calendar. The schedule, the reason why we have to cancel the meeting and set a special meeting is to align with the Measure J allocation schedule. Because in April, our Measure J estimate was not ready. So thinking ahead, and also in case that we may have meeting cancellations for the rest of the year, staff would like to bring this item to your consideration early on. So our suggestion is to move the meetings to March, June, September, and December. For March, June, and December, it will be on the first Monday, the same time. For September, because the holiday schedule, our suggestion is the second Monday. So we would like to ask for your consideration and approval of the meeting schedule for 2024.
All right, thank you, Ying. Any comments, questions? I can say for myself that looks okay at the moment. It's a long time in the future for me to think about, but thank you to staff for trying to work around that issue, the timing. All right, Terry-Ann, any written public comment?
No written public comment.
Okay, and then if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand.
No public comment.
Okay, so this is an approval item. So can we have a motion in a second?
Move to approve the recommendation.
I'll second it.
A motion from Horta, second from Thompson. And a vote.
Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Horta,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
and Acting Chair Androcek.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And that concludes our regular agenda items. Next is number 5, correspondence and communications. Any members have anything they would like to report? Ms. Worth, looks like. Oh, nope. I made that motion like I'm looking for the button there. All right, not seeing anything else. Last item is adjournment. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
You.
Thank you.